Gauss and Witt 1935 applied the Lotka-Volterra phase plane model to mutualism, and many papers have used this approach since. Busha 1985a, Wolin 1985. This kind of model plots the population density of one mutualistic species on the horizontal axis and the other on the vertical axis, for instance with pollinating bees and plants. As populations change in size, it is usually predicted that one species will benefit at one pair of densities, say low densities, and the other at higher densities. The species will then develop a stable equilibrium density where densities intersect, and four phases can be recognized. Phase A, where both densities increase. Phase B, in which both densities will decrease. Phase C, in which species 1 will increase and species 2 will decrease. And Phase D, where species 1 decreases and species 2 increases. Figure 6.18. The two interacting species are assumed to act independently, such as a pollinator species and a plant species, which of course is not relevant to many symbiotic mutualisms, such as those with transovarial transmission, coprophagy and most microbial symbionts. Also, as we have seen repeatedly, seldom or only two species involved in a mutualistic embrace. A third species is often the victim and multiple species are involved. Nevertheless, much modeling effort has been applied to pairs of species that live independently. May 1973a, B, C, 1976, 1978b, 1981 developed models of mutualism using pollinators and plants as examples of interacting species, adding in the phase plane models the likelihood of extinction when the density of either population becomes low. Figure 6.19. Resources such as food, in terms of food for the pollinator or transported pollen for the plant, may become too scarce to support the population, and populations would move towards extinction in the shaded area of figure 6.19. The pollinator population, Y, can be assumed to grow according to the logistic equation, see Chapter 9, with a carrying capacity proportional to the plant population size, X. Therefore, equilibrium numbers of the pollinator, Y, must lie along the plane defined by the line di dt. The plant population is assumed to have concave equilibrium values because intraspecific competition limits maximum density, setting a carrying capacity, and plants can propagate by seed only when pollinators are adequate. A threshold density of pollinators is involved, below which plant populations will decline. Above this density, the plant population will increase toward the carrying capacity. K1. K2. Hypothetically reaching a stable equilibrium with pollinators, at which point plant populations below equilibrium will increase, and populations above equilibrium will decrease, as shown in figure 6.19, and in the simpler phase plane model in figure 6.18. Another kind of model emphasizes benefit-cost ratios. One example is Fonseca's 1993 model concerning mycophytes and their ant mutualists. He assumed that ant colony size on a plant with domatia or extrafloral nectaries, or both, could increase in a linear way, but the benefit to the plant would increase rapidly at low ant colony size and would decline as ants no longer increase their host plant protection, so the benefit of ants would reach an asymptote. Figure 6.20. At extreme ant densities, the relationship moves from mutualism to parasitism, when the costs of domatia exceed the benefits of ants. This conceptual model could be tested using energy required to meet the costs, and that saved by the benefits, with the expectation that an optimum ant colony size would be evident where benefits far exceed costs, shown as the maximum net benefit, at ant density, n, in figure 6.20, see also Fonseca and Benson 2003. Fonseca suggests that mycophytes could limit ant colony size by setting a low carrying capacity for nesting sites, domatia, on the plant, thereby controlling in evolutionary time the net benefit of ant mutualists. Keeler 1985 reviewed the many kinds of cost-benefit models of mutualism involving a variety of species, finding generalization difficult because of the diverse array of interactions. A promising approach has used net functional responses of pairs of mutualists based on the gross benefits of the mutualism, GB, the costs, C, and the net effects, nay 1/4 of a gigabyte, C, Holland et al. 2002. The sevariables are estimated as per capita rate of reproduction and, or survival of a mutualist population, mutualist 2, in response to the population size of mutualist 1. The modeling was plant population X. Unstable point. Threshold density. Stable equilibrium. POLINATOR PO PULATION. Applied to the obligate mutualism of the Sonida cactus and Sonida moth already described in this chapter. There is probably more interest in mutualism today than ever before, reflected in a great diversity of modeling approaches. Mutualism is so diverse in the kinds of interactions involved that it is difficult to generalize models that are helpful in understanding nature. To remain simple, however, models often emphasize two-species interactions. As an example, predator-prey kinds of approaches are used to examine functional responses of fig wasps and fig trees, and yucca moths and their hosts, e.g., DeAngelis and Holland 2006. Models of ants competing in a mutualism with a cactus, Morris et al. 2005, and the population dynamics and coevolution in mutualisms, e.g., plants and mycorrhizas, McGill 2005, take very different approaches. Bronstein et al. 2007 explore a resource allocation model for the interesting case of a pollinating moth whose larvae are virtually obligate herbivores on the same host plant species. The moth is both mutualist and antagonist in different stages of its life cycle. The variety in this literature is impressive, and the quantification of parameters and the testing of models remains a major challenge in the field. 6.9 Complexity of interactions. The diversity, frequency and intimacy of mutualisms should have been clear in the treatment of this subject, but we have yet to emphasize the inevitable community dynamics when several to many species interact. Gilbert 1980 captured this kind of complex scenario very well, figure 6.21. Two-species systems they are not. Most mutualisms are included in multi-species systems, across diverse landscapes, with complex interactions incorporating many kinds of interplay. Gilbert 1980, page 23 used the term keystone mutualists, which he defined as those organisms, typically plants, which provide critical support to large complexes of mobile links. Mobile links are animals that are significant factors in the persistence of several plant species which, in turn, support otherwise separate food webs, page 19, such as pollinators, fruit and seed dispersers, and ants that defend plants, with bats, birds, moths, bees and ants as focal players. The plants are likely to have distinct phytochemicals to which certain insects are attracted, and, together with mutualistic pollinators and ants, much of neotropical biodiversity is organized. Cumulative energy. According to Gilbert, many mutualistic associations could be added, such as mycorrhizas, microbial symbionts in many animals and honeydew-providing hemipterans. Gilbert's view of complex tropical mutualisms is organized around 6 plant groups, figure 6.21I, the Solanum family, Solanaceae, 2, the genus Heliconia, 3, orchids, IV, canopy-emergent trees such as figs, V, grasses, V, passion flower vines. The hexagons represent plant species, with hexagon size indicating taxon abundance. Many of these plants act as keystone mutualists, providing important resources for mobile links, see heavy arrows. Specialized herbivores on particular host plants are represented by small solid triangles, and their specialized parasites by small solid boxes, all indicated on the outside of the plant groups in the figure. The large triangle in the middle of the figure represents generalized herbivores such as grasshoppers and leafcutter ants. The 6 large C, D, E, F, A, B, 2. Circles show mobile links important in pollination, seed dispersal, and plant protection AF, and thin lines show the resources they service, including many passing out of the figure to other kinds of plant groups. Heavy arrows indicate plants critical to the support of mobile links, which are themselves mutualists. Added complexity comes at the landscape level on which plant species occur at different stages of succession, on different soil types, and at various places on the topography. The connection among plant groups maintained by mobile links should be noted. Only when habitat heterogeneity prevails, so that the many plant groups coexist as an interwoven community, can the services of these mutualists be supported. This figure would be much more complex were all species included. Nonetheless, mutualism plays a crucial role in the maintenance of diversity in the system. Gilbert 1980, p. 3-2. Figures similar to Gilbert's portrayal, figure 6.21, could be developed for almost any community on Earth, emphasizing the essential roles of mutualists in ecosystems, and the supporting roles they perform in maintaining biodiversity. See examples in Strauss and Irwin 2004. Modeling approaches have explored several roles of mutualisms in communities, which expand upon Gilbert's empirical example, e.g., Lewinson et al. 2006, Fortuna and Bascomp 2006. The maintenance of biodiversity was addressed by Bascomp et al. 2006, who argued that mutualistic networks should be regarded as coevolved structures with 2 important traits. 1. Coevolutionary complementarity, in which pairwise interactions depend on matching characters such as flower depth and pollinator proboscis length. 2. Coevolutionary convergence, in which species can enter into existing networks because characters such as flower depths or proboscis lengths are convergent. Their modeling suggests that asymmetric relationships between mutualists, on a strong and one weak, are important in the maintenance of biodiversity. Were communities cataloged for the number of interactions involving predation, parasitism and mutualism, we should expect mutualistic interactions to rank along with the other 2 major forms of interplay. To maintain systems in balance, antagonistic interactions should be matched by reciprocal beneficial ones. Hopefully, a growing literature on mutualistic interactions will eventually reflect this kind of balance. 6.10 An historical note. One wonders why mutualism has been underrated or even ignored in ecology, even into the recent past. History provides a clue. Elton, 1927, in his influential book, Animal Ecology, ignored the subject. Andrew Eartha and Birch, 1954, mentioned mutualism once, and Lack, 1954, 1966, not at all. Odom, 1959, noted how mutualism was widespread and important, but treated the subject only briefly. A small consideration of mutualism was spliced into a chapter on predator and prey relationships by Rickliffs, 1973. In May's 1976 rendition of a mutualism model, figure 6.19, he noted that in unstable environments one or both species would be likely to slip into the shaded zone and move to extinction. Therefore, he concluded that mutualisms will probably persist in stable environments, such as the humid tropics. Of course, this view is not reflected in nature because mutualisms are ubiquitous. One important contributing factor is that many associations are obligatory, involving transaviarial transmission, coprophagy and tight social units with easy transmission. Also, many mutualisms can be found in cool temperate climates such as the British Isles where 45% of insect species were estimated to enter into some kind of mutualistic association, Price 1997, and mutualisms such as pollination are common throughout latitudinal gradients. One of the reasons why mutualism was underrated in ecology resulted from an early emphasis on mammals and birds, e.g., Elton 1927, Lack 1954, 1966. Although mutualism is common enough in These groups, such as gut symbionts, bird and bat pollinators, bird and mammal seed and fruit dispersers, and the many associations represented in Figure 6.21, these interactions were largely ignored. Andrew Urtha and Birch 1954 concentrated attention on insects, yet still almost ignored mutualism. This general disregard was widespread in those times, contributing to generations of ecologists not versed in the fascination, ubiquity and importance of mutualism. Fortunately, mutualism is an idea which has been reborn in the last decade. Never entirely absent from ecological thought, it nonetheless fell out of favor as modern ecology grew, and only since the early 1970s have we begun to find it important again. Ecologists once again find it interesting. Busha 1985a, p. 1. Now, most general ecology texts devote a chapter to mutualism, but they illustrate the weak development of concept and theory, compared to other interactions such as plant-herbivore interactions, competition and predation. Applications. Beneficial interactions in agriculture. The growth and propagation of plants are fundamental to agriculture, forestry and horticulture. For these activities to be successful and sustainable, many kinds of organisms are essential, involving nutrition in soil, nitrogen fixation, mycorrhizal symbionts, decomposers, soil conditioners, pollinators and others perhaps, such as endophytic fungi. Price 1984b, Figure 6.22. Many mutualistic relationships are involved. Therefore, the art and science of growing plants should attempt to favor such beneficial activities and to minimize detrimental effects. The use of insecticides may well be lethal to soil organisms and pollinators, and fertilizers may diminish the positive effects of mycorrhizas. Therefore, the accomplished farmer, or forester, recognizes the subtle interplay of all components in the ecosystem which is being managed. As demand for organic crops increases, preserving natural pathways of interaction in the soil, above ground and between the two will enhance the quality of the crop, the profitability for the grower, and the welfare of the ecosystem. Management is well developed for the promotion of crop pollination, where honeybees contribute an estimated $12 to $16 billion of crop value per year in the United States, and native bees about $3 billion, Lossy and Bond 2006. Not only is direct pollination of crops an important ecosystem service performed by insects, but many animals are supported by the resources supplied by insect-pollinated plants. Hence, animal food, dairy, fertilizers, herbicides, fungicides, miticides, products, nuts, vegetables, seeds and oils all contribute to an estimated 15% to 30% of the human diet in the United States, which depends upon insect-pollinated crops. However, the problem of pollinator decline, involving dramatic decreases of wild and domesticated bees occurring around the world, is threatening the sustained pollination of crops, and crop yields, the conservation of pollinator populations, and the plants which they service. Bookman and Nobbin 1996. Papers have been commissioned, e.g., Alan Wardell et al. 1998, and Syntheses on Pollinator Decline have been sponsored, for example by the National Center for Ecological Analysis and Synthesis, e.g., Kane and Tepedino 2001, Kevinan Phillips 2001 and Associated Papers, and the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, Barenbaum et al. 2007. On a global scale, loss of pollinators is expected to reduce agricultural production by 3–8%, Eisen et al. 2009. Many ecological questions need attention concerning landscape management, intercropping, floral properties of wild species and horticultural varieties conducive to pollinators, population and community structure of pollinating species, the epidemiology of the parasites afflicting pollinators and the impact of declines on cultivated crop yields and wild plant populations. See Alan Wardell et al. 1998. The predictions of Carson 1962 and Tepedino 1979 that pollinators were threatened have been validated. Bookman and Nobbin 1996 with declines resulting from disruption of the delicate biofabrica of interactions that bind ecosystems together. Wilson 1996, pp. Exiv XV or on the same theme in Carson's 1962, page 73 words, the elimination of the last sanctuaries of these pollinating insects and breaking the threads that bind life to life. These views mirror precisely the complex interplay of species described by Gilbert 1980 and discussed under the section on complexity of interactions in this chapter. Other mutualistic systems also provide important ecosystem services. Lossy and Bond 2006 estimate the value at some $0.4 billion per annum of dung burial by dung beetles, their role in the decomposition of dung, the recycling of nitrogen, the reduced fouling of forage and the amelioration of pest fly problems. Pest control by natural enemies, many with symbiotic associations, see below, is estimated at $4.49 billion worth of protection, and insects as food for birds and fish contribute to the economics of recreational activities to the extent of about $50 billion per year in the USA. We know enough about the kinds of insects providing ecosystem services and the plants that they interact with to realize that a multitude of mutualistic interactions are involved. Many interactions will involve loose mutualisms such as predators and parasitoids feeding on plant products like nectar and pollen, which in turn provide protection of the plant against herbivores. But for many interactions, intimate and obligate mutualistic associations have been detected, such as the polydnavirus PDV, associates of parasitoids, which allow them to defeat the immune systems of their herbivorous hosts. See Chapter 8. Busha 1985b, in his chapter on mutualism in agriculture, discussed the several ways in which humans can make practical use of mutualisms by simply promoting the associations found in nature as described in this chapter. This also involves the husbandry of mutualisms, as well as the focal crop. Mutualism is also essential in the conservation of biodiversity. Samways, 1994, emphasized the importance of maintaining pollinating systems intact in natural vegetation, and fostering ant-insect interactions by preserving ant habitat, which is critical to the survival of its mutualistic associates. Although all butterfly host plant species have remained in one English county, 42% of its butterfly species have been lost, partly due to reduction of suitable sites because of agriculture and urbanization, but also from more subtle changes in the landscape, such as reduced grazing resulting in lowered habitat quality for mutualistic ants. Gilbert's 1980 concept of keystone mutualists, and the interplay of many plant species connected by their mutualists, figure 6.21, is essential in promoting conservation efforts that maintain or amplify habitat heterogeneity. This view can also be applied to landscapes dominated by agriculture where natural vegetation is reserved in the landscape for its aesthetic appeal, and for the conservation of species that provide ecosystem services. Bianchi et al. 2006, Guillaume 2006. Fields set aside from agriculture can provide successional natural vegetation with plant species composition changing from year to year, thereby contributing to a mosaic of different habitats and insect species such as butterflies. Stefan de Winter and Charnke 1997a, Klein et al. 2006. Habitat fragmentation reduces insect diversity both in natural and agricultural landscapes. Cruz and Charnke 1994, Stefan de Winter and Charnke 1997b. Insect services decline as fragmentation increases. Charnke and Brandl 2004. We may also learn critical lessons on how to manage microbial organisms, as insects do with their mutualists. For example, when ants grow their fungus gardens, the parasitic fungi on their gardens have been suppressed for millions of years by the antibiotic produced by bacteria mutualistic with the ants. Curry et al. 2006. The authors ask how antibiotic virulence can be maintained in the face of presumably strong selection for resistance to develop in the parasitic fungi. The answer is not yet known, although the solution may be applicable to antibiotic resistance in human medicine. Another potential application of knowledge on mutualism is to target the microbial mutualists of insects that vector disease-producing organisms among animals, including humans. For example, insect vectors that suck blood, such as sucking lice and triatomine bugs, have symbiotic bacteria that contribute nutrients to their otherwise restricted diet. Genetically altered bacteria could be produced that target the pathogens and disrupt transmission cycles in the insect vector. This approach is under investigation in the reduvid bug, Rhodnius prolixus, which transmits Trypanosoma cruzi, the causal agent of Chagas disease. The method is known as paratransgenesis, or the Trojan horse method, akin to introducing warriors into the heart of a community. Durbasula et al. 2003. The altered bacteria are transmitted transivarially from generation to generation, making a lineage permanently pathogenic to the human pathogen, so long as resistance in the human pathogen does not evolve. In the protection of crops, symbiotic fungi pathogenic to pest insects are likely to become very important. For example, Bovaria bassiana has been used as an entomopathogen for many years, but it also becomes an endophytic symbiont with corn, one-quarter maize, and many other plant species. Arnold and Lewis 2005. It is transmitted horizontally by dry conidia germinating on a leaf surface when moist, or by sucking insects. Its antibiotic activity is widespread among insect orders. Many other endophytic fungi show entomopathogenic activity which may be harnessed in the service of insect pest management on crops. Another kind of interaction may prove to be important in control of virus transmission among plants by aphids and other vectors. In this context, plant extracts, such as those from the neem tree, Azadirachta indica Meliaceae, interfere with the metabolism of the Buchnera symbiont in aphids, which reduces efficacy of the potato leaf roll luteovirus. For instance, at certain low concentrations aphid growth was not impaired, but virus transmission was reduced by 40–70%, Van den Heuvel et al. 1998. This example shows that microbial symbionts may be targeted with phytochemicals, or synthetic antibiotics, to effect control of the insect herbivores themselves, or the plant pathogens that they may transmit. Whether in natural or managed environments, mutualisms play a major and even central role, in population, community and ecosystem processes, in the evolutionary biology of species, and in the adaptive radiation of lineages. The role of mutualism is easily overlooked, a subliminal, but ubiquitous, presence. Researchers and managers should be alert constantly for the likely role of mutualistic associations and the way that they may influence ecology and evolution. Conversely, how humans may influence mutualisms in nature and in managed systems is a subject of enduring interest and importance. Summary. We have entered into the complex and intriguing world of beneficial relationships among species by recognizing that mutualism has contributed centrally to the development of the eukaryotic cell and life in general. The roles of mutualisms in insect ecology are extensive, involving, by association with a mutualistic species, the exploitation of new nutritional resources, the acquisition of protection or the transportation of propagules. We have investigated how beneficial relationships have resulted in the evolution of biodiversity for insect herbivores, carnivores and the structure of trophic-level relationships. We speculated on the origins of mutualisms, perhaps deriving from parasitic relationships, and recognize that benefits must incur costs in these interactions between species. For example, pollinators may exact a cost on the pollinated plant by ovipositing in the ovary where larvae feed on seeds. Protective ants must be sustained by food supplied by the plant, and insects produce honeydew for their ant defenders. But cheating mutualistic systems is common, as in pollination, involving species that take nutrients without providing a service. 4 examples serve as reminders of how mutualisms have resulted in adaptive radiation of the taxa involved by opening up novel opportunities for exploiting resources. Breeding in trees, and utilizing woody tissue and organic litter have all been enabled with the acquisition of microbial mutualists. The modeling of mutualisms often employs a modified phase plane model, with partners living independently, or benefit-cost ratio models. However, such models cannot capture the complex nature of mutualistic interactions, where many linkages among species are generated by species forming a network of associations in the community. The beneficial nature of mutualisms in agriculture are discussed in the applications section, as well as their relevance to conservation biology. Several opportunities exist for interrupting the obligate mutualistic function in pest insects, thereby disrupting their ability to live and breed. QUESTIONS. 7 Prey and predator interactions. In Chapter 4 we learned how plants and herbivores can influence each other's abundance, distribution and evolution. Here we consider another important intertrophic level relationship that can have widespread ecological and evolutionary effects on biological communities, the interaction between prey and their predators. In an ecological sense, predators can dramatically affect the abundance and distribution of their prey populations, and reciprocal effects of prey on their predators are also inevitable, as prey are obviously an important food source for predators. Likewise, the diverse feeding habits of predators form linkages that are responsible for the flow of energy through food webs. Predation can also be a powerful evolutionary force, with natural selection favoring more effective predators and less vulnerable prey. Thus, it is imperative that we understand the process of predation and its complex effects on species interactions, and population and community dynamics. In the sections that follow, we explore critical elements of prey-predator interactions, namely how prey and predators interact to affect each other's long-term population dynamics, what factors stabilize prey-predator interactions and promote their persistence, how multi-species interactions influence the role of predation in complex food webs, the contribution of behavior to a predator's total impact on prey populations, and how predators and prey have reciprocally influenced each other's evolution. 7.1 What is a predator? In a very general sense, predation can be viewed as the consumption of one living organism, the prey, by another organism, the predator. Usually the whole prey item is killed and eaten. If the prey organism in question is a plant, then this general definition of predation includes herbivora. However, whole plants are usually only killed and eaten by a single predator when the plant is in the seed or seedling stage. Hence the terms seed predator and seedling predator are in common usage. In the context of this chapter, however, we restrict our definition of predation to acts of carnivory in which animals consume other animals. We define predators as animals that kill and consume all or parts of their prey, and require many prey items to reach maturity. This definition distinguishes predators from parasitoids, such as some small wasps and flies, which require and eat only one prey item during their lifespan. Parasitoids are free-living as adults, and lay their eggs in or on a host. Larvae hatch from the eggs and live parasitically in or on the host, eventually killing it. For conceptual simplicity we discuss predators and parasitoids as representing distinct biological groups. However, the line distinguishing predators from parasitoids is often blurred, with biological reality perhaps better represented as a continuum rather than discrete categories. Although a single parasitoid will directly consume a single prey item, an adult female parasitoid that oviposits on many hosts will ultimately be responsible for the death of many individuals. In this way, predators and parasitoids can have comparable ecological impacts, and prey-predator and host-parasitoid interactions share many important similarities. As a result, parasitoids have contributed much to the development of the theory surrounding predation, Raffel et al. 2008. Therefore, while the focus of this chapter is on predators and their prey, their relationship between parasitoids and their hosts will also be considered where relevant. A more detailed treatment of the ecological and evolutionary biology of parasitoids, and the parasitic lifestyle more generally, is provided in Chapter 8. 7.2 The generalized feeding habit of predators. While it is convenient to think of predators as occupying a discrete trophic level that is functionally distinct from that of their prey, in reality predators are often generalized in their feeding habits and may consume not only prey, but also other predators and/or plant resources, see Chapter 13. In this circumstance, generalist predators are more accurately described as omnivores, consumers that feed from multiple trophic levels. For instance, big-eyed bugs are often labeled as generalist predators, but are actually omnivorous consumers whose diverse range of prey species includes aphid and lepidopteran eggs and larvae, as well as the pods, seeds and leaves of many plant species. To further complicate matters, big-eyed bugs also fall victim to predation by omnivorous fire ants that compete with big-eyed bugs for herbivorous insect prey. This special case of omnivory, when predators consume other predators with which they compete for a common prey resource, is called intraguild predation. Cannibalism is distinguished from intraguild predation as occurring when predators consume members of their own species. Wolf spiders, Lycosa and Pardosa, for example, are notoriously cannibalistic, consuming smaller individuals in the population and even their own offspring. As we will see in Chapter 13, generalist predators that engage in omnivorous feeding strategies, including plant feeding and intraguild predation, enhance the complexity of food webs and complicate our understanding of the role of predators in community dynamics. Although many predators are generalists and feed on a diversity of prey species, there are some very specialized feeders. Ground beetles in the genus Scaphinotus feed selectively on mollusks and have a long head and mandibles adapted for reaching deep into snail shells. In contrast to predators, parasitoids commonly exhibit a high degree of specialization, often feeding on only a single life stage of a particular group of insects. This level of specialization is likely the result of the intimate association between parasitoids and their hosts, see Chapter 8. Whether predators are generalists or specialists can have consequences for food web dynamics, as we will see later. 7.3 Predator effects on prey abundance. Excluding predators from or adding predators to natural prey populations provides evidence that predators indeed can reduce populations of their prey, very significantly so in some cases. For example, herbivorous planthopers Prochylesia marginata and their wolf spider predators Pardosa littoralis co-occur on the intertidal marshes of North America. When spiders are removed from habitat patches, planthopper populations are up to very high levels. If spiders are removed, but are then added back into habitat patches at natural densities, planthopper populations remain suppressed. Do Diaresis Bell and Dino 1994. The biological control of crop pests following the release of natural enemies provides further evidence that predators suppress prey populations. With the accidental introduction of cottony cushion scale Iceria purchasii from Australia, the California citrus industry became seriously threatened by this severe insect pest. In the late 1800s, a predaceous ladybird beetle, Rhodelia cardinalis, was collected in Australia and subsequently released into California's citrus groves. Shortly after the release of this efficient predator, it completely controlled the scale insect and saved the citrus industry from financial ruin. Caltagirone and Doubt 1989. The introduction of some insect growth regulators in the late 1990s that were highly toxic to Rhodelia caused a re-emergence of cottony cushion scale, showing again that this predator remains the primary regulator of scale populations. Grafton Cardwell et al. 2006. Since this classic case, the encouragement or release of arthropod predators has frequently resulted in reduced pest populations. Simonson et al. 2002. There are cases, however, in which predator removal does not result in increased prey density. Often, such cases involve compensatory mortality, whereby the mortality inflicted by predation is replaced by mortality from another limiting factor like food shortage, or compensatory population growth of prey as a result of reduced intraspecific competition. It is clear that predators can inflict high mortality on prey populations and that in the absence of predation, prey population eruption is possible. See Chapter 11. But what is the exact nature of this predation, and how do prey and predators interact to affect each other's long-term population dynamics? As we will see later in this chapter, predators can have both consumptive and non-consumptive, i.e., behaviorally mediated, effects on populations of prey. We focus first on the consumptive impacts of predators and how these effects are influenced by a predator's response to changes in prey density, as well as interactions among conspecific and heterospecific predators. 7.4 Predator responses to changes in prey density. The first step in understanding the prey and predator relationship is to understand the response of predators to changes in prey density. This can either be the response of an individual predator in its ability to catch and handle prey, functional response, or an increase in predator population size, numerical response, as prey densities grow. Solomon 1949. 7.4.1 Functional response. The functional response of a predator describes how an individual's rate of prey consumption changes in response to prey density. In a practical sense, functional responses can be used to estimate rates of prey depletion, identify predator preferences for particular prey types, characterize linkages across trophic levels, and may ultimately contribute to the prediction of community dynamics. Using a component analysis approach, Holling was able to identify several predator-related factors that contribute to the functional response. Holling 1959a, B, 1961. In his now classic experiment, a blindfolded human predator foraged for 4 cm diameter sandpaper discs or prey that were tacked to a 9 square foot table. The number of discs captured in 1 minute by tapping the table until finding a disc and removing the disc from the table was recorded across a range of disc densities. These data were used to develop a general model of the predator functional response known as the Holling disk equation. The general disk equation is Na 1/4 at TNO 1 at HNO 7 1, where Na is the number of discs removed, No is the density of discs offered, Tt is the total time available for searching, Th is the handling time, and A is the searching efficiency or attack rate of the predator. This equation describes what is known as a type 2 functional response curve in which the consumption rate of the predator increases at a decelerating rate until it levels off to an upper plateau. Figure 7.1. This saturating response is the result of a trade-off in the time available for a predator to search for prey Tt, and the handling time Th, the time required to subdue, consume and digest each prey item. At low prey densities, predators spend most of their time searching for prey items. At high prey densities, most of a predator's time is spent handling captured prey and relatively little time is spent searching for additional prey. Eventually, predators become satiated and the response saturates since predators that are not hungry will not continue to consume additional prey items. Holling 1966. Thus, Holling's work highlights 4 essential components of the type 2 functional response: rate of successful search, time predator and prey are exposed to each other, handling time, and hunger. The basic type 2 functional response curve originally described by Holling accurately represented the few published responses of natural enemies to prey density that existed at the time, all of which involved parasitoids or invertebrate predators, including eulithid and braconid wasps, coryxid bugs and didicid beetles. Holling 1961. Further study revealed that alternative relationships between predator consumption rate and prey density were possible under different ecological scenarios. For example, vertebrate predators such as small mammals and birds produced a sigmoidal or S-shaped functional response. Only small variations on the disk equation were necessary to accurately reproduce these alternative functional response curves. Holling 1959a described 3 major types of functional response. Figure 7.2. Type 1 functional response. For predators exhibiting a type 1 functional response, the consumption rate of a single individual is limited only by prey density. Thus, over a wide range of densities, per capita consumption and prey density are linearly related, up to a 100. Number of discs per 9 square feet. 0, 50, 150, 200, 250, 300. 0. 5. Num. BEROFDISKS. PICKD. Threshold density, figure 7.2a. In this case, the proportion of prey captured of the total number offered remains constant and independent of prey density, figure 7.2b. The type 1 functional response is a specialized case that may be exclusive to filter feeders, including web-building spiders, which are able to snare many food items simultaneously. Jeshka et al. 2004. Type E functional response. Most invertebrate predators, e.g., hunting spiders, praying mantids, ladybird beetles, and most parasitoids exhibit type 2 functional response described by general disk equation above, Luck 1984, Fernandez Arhex and Corley 2003, figure 7.2c. Notably, for predators with a type 2 response, the fraction of prey captured of the available total decreases with increasing prey density, figure 7.2d. As prey density increases, such predators are less able to reduce prey population growth, thus providing prey with an ever-growing opportunity to escape from predation. Type E functional response. Many vertebrate, e.g., birds and mammals, and some invertebrate predators and parasitoids show a sigmoidal or type E functional response, figure 7.2e. For such predators, consumption rate responds slowly to increases in prey density when prey are scarce.